silence inside the executive boardroom was heavy enough to set off a persistent ringing in my ears. I was not supposed to be in there at all. No one was supposed to be in that room at 11:03 at night, with the overhead fluorescent lights dimmed to low standby power and the quarterly projected financial breakdown still flickering across the high-definition wall screen like an uninvited ghost. But there I stood alone in the stale, air-conditioned corporate air, holding a crisp printed copy of an internal financial audit report that I was never intended to see. My name had been quietly removed from the executive document distribution list 4 months ago. The new management team had begun systematically phasing me out, excluding me from high-level operational strategy meetings and looping in younger hires who relied on my legacy software templates just to complete their basic daily tasks. I had only stumbled upon this specific document because a junior analyst had mistakenly uploaded it to an open, unencrypted shared directory. It was a careless mistake that I would have caught, flagged, and corrected within 5 minutes a decade ago. But tonight, it served as undeniable written evidence of corporate betrayal. The financial metrics on page 4 had been blatantly altered. Bold black line items projected massive operating cost savings by modernizing logistics operations, my department. Page after page contained artificially inflated inefficiency estimates designed to make it appear as though the company was hemorrhaging millions of dollars under my direct leadership. It was fabricated dead weight, manufactured entirely on paper to justify my immediate elimination. As I traced the cell modifications in the digital audit log on my tablet, every single doctoring action led straight back to the digital initials of Chief Operating Officer Grant Montgomery. Before I could turn to the summary page, I felt that unmistakable creeping sensation. The sudden chill of a presence standing directly behind my left shoulder. I did not flinch, I did not drop the paper, and I did not allow my breathing to change rhythm. "You always did stay far too late, Howard." Grant's voice drifted into the quiet room. It was polished, rehearsed, and laced with a quiet, calculated cruelty that he usually reserved for closed-door executive negotiations. I carefully folded the audit report in half and turned around to face him. Grant was leaning casually against the polished oak doorframe without his suit jacket, his crisp white shirt sleeves rolled up neat to his forearms. He looked completely relaxed, but his sharp blue eyes were calculating every single inch of my posture like a predator gauging distance before a strike. "I suppose you had a chance to read through the operational restructuring outline," Grant said, gesturing vaguely toward the document held tightly in my right hand. I said nothing. Silence was a professional tool I had mastered over 30 years in corporate systems architecture, and I saw no reason to waste words on a man who had already decided my fate behind closed doors. Grant stepped into the room with slow, deliberate strides, acting as though we were merely old colleagues having an accidental evening catch-up in the hallway. "You built a remarkable foundation here, Howard. Truly, everyone in the C-suite respects your 30 years of dedicated service. But the global logistics market has shifted dramatically. The board demands total agility, cloud-native automation, and significantly leaner operational overhead. You must understand that legacy structures have to make way for modern execution." I could have pointed out the absurd mathematical inaccuracies in his report. I could have explained that his cloud-native automation was operating directly on top of baseline core routines I had personally written in raw code. Instead, I tucked the folded report securely into my leather briefcase, walked straight past him, and brushed his shoulder with just enough firm pressure to let him know I was not small, intimidated, or broken. At the doorframe, I paused without looking back at him. "It is fascinating how passionately you talk about modern automation, Grant. Considering your shiny new software leads cannot even resolve a simple database deadlock without consulting my old manual override documentation." The complete stillness behind me confirmed that his executive confidence was entirely superficial. When I reached my corner office on the 3rd floor, I did not pack my personal framed photographs into a cardboard box. I did not slump in my ergonomic chair and complain. Instead, I booted up my encrypted terminal workstation, accessed the deep system build archives, and opened a line of code I had not touched in over 12 years. The failsafe was named Vance 1974. It was built during a major mainframe migration decades ago. A subterranean administrative protocol encoded so deeply into the root transport kernel that no standard software scanner or external security audit could ever detect its existence. It was never intended as a malicious weapon. It was an ultimate safety switch designed to instantly halt all automated freight dispatches if corrupted commands ever threatened the integrity of the nationwide logistics grid. Executing Vance 1974 required two separate authentication steps. The first was a master command entered manually into the baseline system kernel. The second was a physical hardware key, an unmapped, custom USB security token containing a 25-character cryptographic hash. I opened the bottom drawer of my heavy desk, reached past stacks of archived operational manuals, and pulled out a small velvet pouch. I had not opened it in 15 years. Inside rested the dark brushed metal USB token. Just as my thumb rubbed across the smooth surface of the drive, my desktop monitor flashed with an urgent notification badge. It was a system-wide offboarding email sent directly from Grant Montgomery's personal executive account subject. Notice of immediate departmental transition Washay's body. Howard, effective immediately. Your role as Senior Logistics Systems Director has been eliminated under corporate restructuring. Your access credentials will terminate at midnight. Pack your personal belongings and leave your security badge on the desk. No formal greeting, no acknowledgement of 30 years of unblemished performance ratings, no severance discussion. It was a cold, ruthless dismissal sent by an executive whose division I had saved from a $3 million quarterly deficit 5 years ago. I closed the message window with a single click. I placed the metal security key gently beside my keyboard and stared at the terminal prompt. I had not fully decided whether to flip the switch when I walked into the building tonight. But as I read Grant's message again, the decision was made for me. I inserted the physical security key into the hidden secondary port beneath the workstation chassis. The terminal screen flickered twice, displaying a simple command line. Vance protocol standby. Awaiting physical disconnect. I pulled the key from the slot, slipped it into the inside pocket of my wool trench coat, picked up my briefcase, and walked out into the cool night air. By 8:30 on Monday morning, the central parking terminal outside the regional logistics headquarters was packed, but nothing was moving. 200 heavy freight transport trucks sat completely frozen in precise rows across the asphalt staging yard like iron monuments, waiting for orders that would never arrive. Inside the main corporate building, chaos was rapidly escalating into full-scale panic. The primary real-time tracking dashboards across the central operations floor were completely blank. The automated dispatch schedules looped endlessly on high-definition wall displays, showing spinning red status icons. By 9:07 in the morning, 2 regional vice presidents had already attempted to call my personal mobile number, the phone of the senior director whom Grant had declared obsolete less than 60 hours prior. I did not answer any of those calls. Instead, I sat quietly in a small coffee shop located directly across the avenue from the corporate headquarters. I took slow, deliberate sips from a hot ceramic cup of black coffee, watching the building through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows. From across the avenue, the corporate breakdown looked clean and systematic. A massive multi-million-dollar machine grinding to an absolute halt because its leadership failed to understand what held it together. At 9:13, I saw Grant Montgomery burst through the glass front entrance of the building. His tie was loosened, his face was flushed bright red, and his smartphone was pressed so tightly against his ear that I thought the screen might fracture under the pressure. He paced furiously along the concrete walkway, barking orders at 2 junior operations managers who were waving clipboards in total despair. Grant pointed frantically at the motionless line of freight trucks, as if raw executive anger could jumpstart an automated logistics grid. Then he paused. His eyes swept across the street and locked onto me sitting calmly at the window table. I did not hide, nor did I look away. I calmly lifted my ceramic coffee cup in a measured, silent toast. The true operational disaster was only beginning. At 9:26, a company-wide emergency alert was broadcast across all internal communication channels. System anomaly detected. Infrastructure security teams investigating. 3 minutes later, at 9:29, the entire mobile application backend crashed. Customer inventory tracking disappeared nationwide. Third-party logistics partners began issuing automatic penalty notifications for delayed shipments, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars in real-time liabilities. Precisely what Grant's technical team was attempting to do inside the main server room. They were trying to execute a standard version rollback, reverting the central database to Friday afternoon's configuration state to undo the system freeze. But what their junior software leads did not understand was that Vance 1974 locked the root database schema at the hardware controller level. A digital rollback script could not bypass a physical hardware interrupt. To restore the system, they needed the secondary physical security token. The metal drive currently sitting safely in my trench coat pocket. At 10:04 in the morning, my phone vibrated on the wooden table. The display showed an unknown caller ID, followed immediately by a direct incoming call from Grant Montgomery. I allowed the phone to ring 3 full times before answering. "Good morning, Grant," I said in a calm, steady tone. "What the hell did you do to the network, Howard?" His voice was hoarse and strained, stripped of all the polished executive charisma he had displayed in the boardroom. "I have no idea what you are referring to," I replied smoothly. "As you clearly stated in your official email, my job became obsolete as of midnight on Friday. I am simply enjoying the first morning of my retirement. Do not play games with me," Grant snapped, his voice cracking slightly over the line. "The entire national distribution network is dead. The trucks are locked out, the warehouses cannot scan inventory, and we are losing $600,000 every hour. If this is retaliation for your severance package, you are committing a massive federal crime." "Let us speak accurately about federal law, Grant," I said, leaning back in my chair. "You terminated a 30-year executive without providing 60 days advance notice under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, the Warnin Act. Furthermore, your altered financial report constitutes a direct breach of fiduciary duty under federal corporate governance statutes." Silence fell heavily over the line. "And let us not forget about Sonia Miller," I continued coldly. "You fired her from her logistics coordination post 3 months ago, claiming excessive sick leave while she was actively undergoing chemotherapy. That is a direct violation of the Family and Medical Leave Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. You did it because she caught your initial double invoicing entries through dummy vendors in Dayton." Grant gasped quietly into the microphone. "Howard, come inside. Let us sit down in my private office and negotiate this like reasonable professionals." "We are far past negotiations, Grant," I said. "You wanted an automated system free from legacy dependencies. Now you can experience what happens when the system operates without the architect who built it." I ended the call, removed the battery from my phone, paid for my coffee in cash, and walked calmly out the back exit of the diner. Instead of heading home, I drove 30 miles west to an abandoned operational facility located in Fulcrum West. The property had been decommissioned 7 years ago and was scheduled for corporate demolition, but I still possessed an active master key card for the side maintenance entrance door, a leftover credential from the era when I personally oversaw the building's original server installations. The basement level of Fulcrum West housed a retired secondary backup node. When Grant's Modernization Committee migrated our central mainframe to cloud servers, they assumed this physical node had been wiped and disconnected, but I had kept it powered via an isolated auxiliary generator grid. It ran completely off the corporate network, completely hidden from modern cloud monitoring tools. I wiped a thick layer of dust from the monitor screen and powered up the terminal console. The internal cooling fans roared to life with a deep, heavy hum. Within moments, the green command line interface appeared, displaying raw, unvarnished system telemetry. I typed a simple command into the terminal interface: execute passive mirror trace. If Grant's IT team attempted to force a brute force override or inject synthetic data into the logistics kernel, my backup node would capture every single keystroke, IP address, and authorization credential in real time. Back at corporate headquarters, Grant was growing increasingly desperate. By 1 in the afternoon, Internal Slack channels were overflowing with chaotic rumors. Grant pinned a brief statement to the main employee portal, claiming that an unexpected external hardware malfunction was responsible for the delay, assuring staff that service would be fully restored shortly. However, my passive trace monitor revealed a completely different story. Someone inside the system was attempting to query legacy system restore points that had not been accessed in 10 years. The user credentials did not belong to Grant, nor did they belong to Justin Brooks, his newly appointed young IT director. The session log belonged to Clara Jenkins, a bright junior analyst whom I had personally mentored during her first 2 years at the firm. I watched her terminal commands appear across my screen. Clara was not attempting to break the system. She was navigating through old diagnostic directories, carefully bypassing standard rollback scripts. But when she reached the root entry for archive, Vance 1974, a security prompt flashed on her workstation screen, a security challenge I had programmed years ago. What cannot be stolen, only given, and once broken, becomes your prison. Clara did not guess. She did not attempt to force the prompt with brute force scripts. She immediately logged out of the session and wiped her local workstation cache. She was smart, cautious, and instinctively recognized that she was walking through a digital minefield. I pulled out a secondary burn phone and sent a short text message directly to Clara's personal mobile number. Meet me at the old Iron River Bridge at 3 in the afternoon. Come alone. Leave your phone in your vehicle. At 3 o'clock sharp, I stood by the rusty steel railing of the old river bridge, watching the cold brown water flow beneath the iron structure. 2 minutes later, I heard footsteps crunching over the gravel path behind me. Clara approached slowly, her hands pulled deep into the pockets of her heavy winter coat. She looked pale, exhausted, and visibly anxious. "Howard," she said softly, stopping 3 feet away from me. "The entire executive floor is falling apart. Grant is threatening to involve federal law enforcement, and Justin Brooks is frantically trying to wipe the server logs to cover his own incompetence." "I know," I replied calmly, looking out over the river. "Why were you querying archive Vance 1974 this afternoon, Clara?" She hesitated, her eyes darting nervously toward the tree line. "Grant brought me into his private office at noon. He told me that you had left a malicious virus in the mainframe before you were terminated. He promised me an immediate promotion to senior director if I could decrypt your legacy archive and restore the freight dispatch grid." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him the archive was corrupted beyond repair," Clara whispered. "Because I know you, Howard. You spent 30 years protecting this company's infrastructure. You would never destroy a system out of petty anger. Someone else is manipulating the network from the inside." A thin smile touched my lips. "You learned well, Clara. You are entirely correct." "Who is doing it?" she asked. "Grant is the blunt instrument," I explained, turning to face her. "He wanted to eliminate my salary and position to make his operational cost-cutting look impressive to the board. But the technical manipulation goes deeper. Someone gave Grant the specific command lines to alter the financial audit logs, and someone is currently attempting to stage a fake system recovery." "Justin Brooks?" Clara suggested. "Justin does not possess the technical competence to write a root-level kernel override," I said. "No, this bears the distinct signature of Gwen Radford." Clara gasped in surprise. "Gwen Radford? The former senior compliance director who retired 2 years ago?" "She never truly retired," I said. "Gwen spent a decade fighting me over system access rights. She wanted backdoor administrative oversight built into every logistics module so compliance could alter freight records without audit trails. I refused to build it. Now, she is operating as a third-party consultant for Grant, using his corporate greed to finally gain control of the core infrastructure." Clara looked at me with newfound urgency. "How do we stop them?" I pulled a small, encrypted USB flash drive from my pocket. Not the security key, but a custom keylogger utility I had written. "Take this," I instructed her. "Load it onto your workstation under the disguise of a routine printer driver update. It will monitor every internal Slack message, executive memo, and code injection attempt executed by Grant, Justin, and Gwen. Let them believe they are about to successfully frame me." Clara took the drive and nodded firmly. "I will get it done." By 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, my subterranean mirror ghost protocol had captured alarming digital evidence from corporate headquarters. Gwen Radford and Justin Brooks were actively executing a covert operation inside the primary server room. They were staging a series of synthetic code commits within the central repository, attempting to plant altered historical timestamps. Their objective was simple: manufacture digital evidence demonstrating that I had written a malicious sabotage subroutine 2 years prior, effectively framing me for a premeditated criminal attack under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. However, their technical execution contained a fatal flaw. In their haste to construct the digital frame-up, Justin Brooks backdated the malicious code commits to 11 o'clock on a Tuesday evening 3 years ago. They assigned the commits to my old corporate user handle. But they forgot that 3 years ago, our company had not yet migrated to the modern Git revision control system. At that time, we were using an older subversion architecture that required unique cryptographic SVN hashes signed by my private offline authorization key. Their forged commits lacked my cryptographic signature. They had faked the present, but they did not own the past. Furthermore, Clara's keylogger utility began feeding real-time data from a secret anonymized Slack channel named Project Clean Slate. The channel contained only 3 active participants: Grant Montgomery, Justin Brooks, and an external user operating under the handle Compliance1, Gwen Radford. At 10:14 in the morning, Compliance1 posted a direct instruction. Once the fake recovery script runs, authorize the transfer of $2.4 million to the offshore logistics account in the Cayman Islands under Invoice Registry 32. We will attribute the financial discrepancy to Howard Vance's unrecorded system draining. They were not merely attempting to fire me and cover up operational errors. They were executing a multi-million-dollar corporate embezzlement scheme while using my termination as a convenient scapegoat. I immediately called Wesley Roth, a veteran IT security auditor and former federal contractor who owed me a substantial professional favor after I helped him expose a major data breach 8 years ago. "Wesley," I said when he answered, "I am sending you 2 encrypted archives via a secure peer-to-peer server. One contains 30 years of immutable cryptographically signed SVN system logs. The second contains real-time keylogger captures and offshore banking API call logs generated from corporate headquarters." "What do you need me to do, Howard?" Wesley asked, his tone sharpening instantly as he reviewed the incoming data stream on his screen. "Perform an independent forensic cross-check," I replied. "Verify the cryptographic signatures on the forged commits and map the destination IP addresses of Invoice Registry 32. It took Wesley less than 2 hours to complete the forensic analysis. At 12:35 in the afternoon, he called me back on an encrypted line. "It is an airtight case, Howard," Wesley confirmed. "The forged commits lack your SVN master signatures entirely. The digital footprint on the Cayman Islands wire transfer leads directly to a private consulting firm owned by Gwen Radford, with authorization signatures digitally executed from Grant Montgomery's executive laptop. This is textbook corporate fraud, forgery, and grand larceny. Thank you, Wesley. Stand by to transmit your certified forensic report upon my signal." I spent the next 2 hours drafting an exhaustive, legally unassailable master dossier. I did not send it to Grant Montgomery, nor did I send it to his junior IT leads. At 3:45 in the afternoon, I transmitted the complete dossier directly to the personal email addresses of every member of the board of directors, accompanied by carbon copies to the Federal Department of Labor, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Regional United States Attorney's Office. The dossier included: 1. Certified forensic evidence proving that Grant Montgomery altered corporate financial records to justify my wrongful termination in violation of the Warren Act. 2. Undeniable proof of FMLA and ADA violations regarding the illegal firing of Sonia Miller. 3. Cryptographic audit logs demonstrating Gwen Radford and Justin Brooks's attempt to forge commit histories and frame me under the CFAA. 4. Real-time transaction logs exposing the pending $2.4 million offshore wire transfer to the Cayman Islands. I attached a single cover note addressed to the chairman of the board. "You terminated 30 years of loyal service to conceal corporate embezzlement and structural incompetence. You have until 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to clean your executive suite before these documents are released to national media outlets. The reaction from the board of directors was instantaneous, overwhelming, and absolute. By 6 o'clock on Wednesday morning, emergency legal counsel had arrived at corporate headquarters. The board immediately suspended Grant Montgomery's executive authority, locked Justin Brooks out of the internal network, and issued an emergency subpoena for all records associated with Gwen Radford's consulting firm. At 6:15 in the morning, my phone rang. It was the chairman of the board, speaking in a hushed, deeply shaken voice. "Howard," the chairman said softly into the receiver, "we have reviewed your entire dossier line by line. The board is thoroughly appalled by the criminal actions of Grant Montgomery and Gwen Radford. We want to make this right immediately. We are prepared to offer you full reinstatement as Senior Logistics Systems Director, a public apology issued across all national trade publications, and a substantial salary increase." "I am not interested in returning to my old desk, Mr. Chairman," I replied calmly. "My 30 years at your company ended on Friday night when Grant handed me that cold email. What I demand now is an absolute corporate reckoning." "What are your exact terms?" the chairman asked. "First, Grant Montgomery must resign immediately, forfeiting all severance pay, stock options, and executive bonuses. Second, Sonia Miller must receive full financial restitution, retroactive health benefits, and a formal written apology from the board. Third, Gwen Radford and Justin Brooks must be permanently barred from corporate grounds and referred directly to federal authorities for criminal prosecution under federal embezzlement statutes." "Agreed," the chairman answered without a single second of hesitation. "And the nationwide logistics freeze. Once Grant Montgomery's signed resignation letter is publicly posted on the main corporate portal, I will provide Clara Jenkins with the secondary authorization code to unlock the dispatch grid." At 8 o'clock in the morning, a formal announcement was posted across all internal corporate channels and newswire services. "Grant Montgomery has resigned from his position as Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. The Board of Directors has appointed Clara Jenkins as Acting Logistics Systems Lead. Full operational status across our nationwide freight grid is currently being restored." Shortly after the announcement, I met Grant Montgomery one final time in the public plaza outside corporate headquarters. He walked out of the glass front doors carrying a single cardboard box containing his personal office items. His face was pale, his eyes were sunken, and his confident executive posture had completely collapsed under the weight of exposure. He looked like a thoroughly broken man who had finally realized the true consequences of his unchecked corporate greed. He stopped 5 feet in front of me on the concrete plaza. "You destroyed my entire career, Howard," he said in a strained whisper. "No, Grant," I replied, staring directly into his eyes without flinching. "You destroyed your own career the moment you decided that 30 years of loyal dedication could be discarded to cover up your financial crimes. You treated real human beings as disposable line items on a spreadsheet, and you forgot that complex technical systems are built and understood by human beings." He opened his mouth as if to offer a final weak defense, but no words came out. He turned silently and walked away toward the parking garage, disappearing into the cold morning fog. 10 minutes later, I called Clara Jenkins from my car. "Clara, enter command code Alpha 799 into the route terminal console. It will disengage protocol Vance 1974 and safely release the freight grid." Within 5 minutes, the deep roar of diesel engines echoed across the asphalt staging yard. The 200 freight transport trucks powered up. Their real-time dispatch dashboards flashed bright green, and the nationwide logistics network sprang back to vibrant life. 3 weeks later, I stood on a windy cliff along the coastal highway of Nova Scotia, watching the dark blue ocean waves crash rhythmically against the granite rocks below. The sea air was crisp, clean, and entirely free from corporate stress and office politics. I had purchased a charming coastal home using my personal retirement savings. My legal team had secured a comprehensive financial settlement from the corporate board, guaranteeing my full pension, complete legal indemnity, and an unassailable professional record. They had attempted to erase 30 years of my life with a single cold email sent on a Friday night. They thought a veteran systems architect could be quietly pushed aside by younger hires and ruthless executive modernizers. But they had failed to realize one fundamental truth. When you spend 3 decades building the foundation of an empire, you always know exactly which switch will bring it to its knees. I smiled, pulled my wool trench coat tight against the fresh sea breeze, and turned to walk back toward my new home.